Right now, as you listen to these words, something silent is at work inside your head. It is carving your past into the dark, wet tissue of your brain. We tend to think of our minds as digital archives. We assume there is a pristine folder somewhere behind our eyes holding the summer of 2012, or the scent of a kitchen from childhood, or the precise cold shock of an old heartbreak. But there is no hard drive. There is only about 3 pounds of jellied tissue, suspended in darkness, constantly trying to rebuild your history out of nothing but salt, water, and electricity. If we could look close enough past the bone and into the deep architecture of this space, we wouldn't find any pictures. There are no recorded sounds. Just a dense, unimaginably complex forest of 86 billion cells, whispering to one another across microscopic gaps. Every person you have ever loved, every mistake that still keeps you awake, and every single piece of who you think you are, it all exists as a temporary pattern of electricity traveling through this dark forest. But how does a physical organ turn a fleeting moment into a permanent part of your identity? How does a quiet conversation in the dark become a physical change in your brain? This is the Mindcraft. And today, we are descending into the dark architecture of memory to look at how your mind builds your past, and the strange way it betrays you to do it. To understand how a memory is born, we have to look at how the world gets in. Picture a street corner. It's late, and the air is cold. You smell damp asphalt and wood smoke. Off in the distance, a car horn blares, and a neon sign flickers against the wet pavement. To you, this is one seamless moment. But to your brain, it is a chaotic explosion of raw data. Photons hit your eyes. Sound waves vibrate the tiny bones of your inner ear. Molecules bind to the receptors in your nose. Your brain doesn't see a street corner, it sees a scattered mosaic of sensory noise. The visual cortex at the back of your brain processes the neon light. The auditory cortex at the sides handles the horn. The olfactory bulb decodes the smoke. This scattered information has to be stitched together. And that task falls to a small, ancient structure tucked deep within your temporal lobes, the hippocampus. It looks a bit like a seahorse. And if the different sensory regions of your brain are musicians playing in separate rooms, the hippocampus is the conductor bringing them into harmony. It runs a process called encoding. Through a quick burst of chemical signals, it binds those separate threads of sight, sound, and smell into a single neural signature, a temporary blueprint of that cold, rainy night. But this blueprint is incredibly fragile. It is written in short-term electrical currents. If a siren startles you, or if you simply look away, the pattern dissolves. The spark fades, and the moment is gone forever. For the memory to survive, that whisper has to become physical. To last longer than a few minutes, a memory must undergo a physical transformation. It has to change from electricity into solid structure. We call this consolidation. And it happens mostly when you are completely vulnerable. While you sleep. When you drift into deep sleep, your conscious mind steps aside, and the hippocampus gets to work. It begins to replay the events of your day, over and over, at high speed. It whispers these patterns up to the neocortex, the wrinkled outer layer of the brain where your thoughts and decisions live. Each time the pattern plays, the connections between those neurons get stronger. This is governed by a basic law of biology, synaptic plasticity. Cells that fire together, wire together. At the microscopic gaps between neurons, the synapses, chemical signals pass back and forth. When they do this repeatedly, their bond changes. The sending cell releases more chemicals, the receiving cell grows new receptors to catch them. Over time, physical bridges form. The pathways get thicker, insulated by a fatty layer called myelin that makes the signals travel up to 100 times faster. We call this chemical hardening long-term potentiation. It is like water slowly carving a canyon through stone. At first, the water barely leaves a mark. But over time, the groove becomes so deep that the water has no choice but to follow it. Once this is done, the memory no longer needs the hippocampus. It is written into the neocortex itself. The smell of the smoke is now part of your temporal lobe. The flicker of the neon is etched into your occipital lobe. They are physically a part of you, a constellation of altered cells waiting in the dark to be turned back on. But this is where the comforting story we tell ourselves about memory begins to fall apart. We like to think of remembering as pulling a book from a library shelf. We open it, read the clean pages, and slide it back, untouched. But your brain is not a library. It is more like a theater, and every time you remember something, you are putting on a new performance. You don't just look at a memory. You drag those scattered fragments out of the cortex and back into the active workspace of your mind. And the moment you do that, the memory becomes unstable again. This is a process called reconsolidation. When you recall the past, the physical connections holding it together temporarily soften. The cement liquefies, becoming vulnerable to change. If you are feeling sad when you remember that rainy street corner, the memory itself will absorb some of that sadness. If someone suggests the neon sign was green instead of orange, your brain might quietly swap the colors to make the story fit. And when you are done remembering, the brain writes the memory back into the tissue. But it doesn't save the original. It saves the edit. The truth is, you don't remember your childhood. You remember the last time you thought about it. Our most precious memories are, in a very real way, beautiful, self-assembling lies. Year after year, recall after recall, we gently rewrite our own history, smoothing out the rough edges of what actually happened to build a story we can live with. We are all unreliable narrators of our own lives. Ultimately, we are not defined by what actually happened to us, but by the quiet whispers our brains choose to keep. We are a collection of scars and sparks, navigating a world we can only ever see through the lens of our own biology. Your brain is a cartographer, mapping a landscape that disappears behind you even as it draws the road ahead. It is a fragile, beautiful, and slightly terrifying machine. And maybe the real mystery isn't how we remember, but how we manage to know who we are at all, when the ground beneath our feet is made of nothing but electricity and dust. If you want to go deeper into the labyrinth of the human mind, subscribe to the Mindcraft. Leave your thoughts in the comments while they are still your own. Until next time, keep exploring the secrets within.